Welcome to chapter 4 of the book of Judges. We now are going into the fourth judge. And it begins, "And the sons of Israel proceeded to act wickedly before the Lord." And this is ongoing throughout the book of Judges, where when the judges are ruling, then they're walking with the Lord, and otherwise they walk away. And it continues, "And Ehud died. And the Lord delivered them, Israel, into the hand of Eavin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor." And we have our map here. Hazor is way up here, above the Sea of Galilee. "And the ruler of his force was Sisera, and he dwelt in Arisoth of the nations," wherever that is. "And the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord because 900 chariots of iron were his." Now that's a lot of chariots, 900. I always have problems with the questions on the numbering. 900 was what the translators into the Greek saw as far as in the Hebrew. But if you look in the Hebrew, you'll find about 6 sets of glyphs, in English it would be maybe like an I and an L, the lowercase, where you have an I is only so long, where an L is twice as long. And I think they're called homeoglyphs, but English doesn't have, it's not an alphanumeric alphabet, so it doesn't really matter. It has nothing to do with numbers. But it does have to do with numbers in Hebrew. And all of these glyphs, similar glyphs, could change the number easily by if somebody made a yod, or what I call an eid, a little bit longer, then brought it down, the line down further, could change the number. And so I think it would be a good study for somebody that was doing a master's or maybe a doctor's dissertation on the numbering, Hebrew numbering of these similar glyphs, and what the possibility other numbers could be if these glyphs were exchanged. But it says 900 chariots of iron were his, so it's 900, "and he afflicted Israel by kratos," might. We have a democrat. The krat is demos is people, might of people, for 20 years. That's quite a while. Now, we had before, it was, I'm trying to find, we had Othniel was the ruler, Cushan Rishathaim was 8 years, and 40 years that Othniel was there, and Ehud 80 years, and here Barak was Israel was afflicted for 20 years by Yavin. "And Deborah, a woman prophetess, wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel in that time." She's the second prophetess that is mentioned in the Bible. The first prophetess was mentioned in Exodus 15:20, and that was Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. She was called the prophetess in Exodus 15:20. But here Deborah was a prophetess, and she judged Israel in that time. There have been rulers of Israel that were women. Gedaliah was a ruler for a while, and Goldie Meir in our time, or my time, was another ruler in Israel, female ruler in Israel. And here we see the usage of the word geni used twice. So it's synonymous with wife and woman. It could be either one. The only way you can tell which one it means, sometimes it's difficult, but by the context. In here you could say, and Deborah, a wife prophetess, woman of Lapidoth, but that doesn't sound right. But a woman prophetess, wife of Lapidoth, does sound correct. And then the New Testament, and even with Jesus, where he is talking about adultery, and he talks about a man looking upon, in the King James, I think he has a woman, but I don't see that at all. It's a wife, because he's talking about adultery. Adultery only has to do with married people. But so woman here is gyne. We have gynecology, comes from that, misogyny. And she sat down under the phoenix palm. That's what it means. We have the city Phoenix, Arizona. Sat down under the palm of Deborah, between Ramah and between Bethel and Mount Ephraim. And Ramah and Bethel, here's Bethel, and Ramah is just right below it, north of Jerusalem, and then there's Ephraim, Mount Ephraim. And the sons of Israel ascended to her there to be judged. They brought the problems and so forth, and she would decide. And Deborah sent and called Barak, son of Avinoam, from out of Kedesh, Naphtali. And Kedesh is up here, Naphtali. Now, Barak, there was a prime minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, in my time, ruled ruled is a word, I guess, served time of Israel, the current Israel. And she said to him, well, did not the Lord God of Israel give charge to you, saying that you shall go forth into Mount Tabor? And now Tabor is right about here. There it is, Mount Tabor in Zebulun. And you shall take with yourself 10,000 men from the sons of Naphtali here, and from Zebulun, where it's right here. And I shall bring to you at the rushing stream Kishon, Sisera, ruler of the force of Iavin, and his chariots, and his multitude, and that rushing stream Kishon is right here, and Haifa is right there. And I will deliver him into your hand. And Barak said to her, well, if you should go with me, I'll go. And if you should not go, I will not go. And Deborah said to him, in going I will go with you, except know that the honor will not be yours in the way which you go. So she's the opposite of today, where a man would say something like that, and you would be condemned for it because you're being, what's the word for it? I can't think of the word. Saying something about a woman that you shouldn't be saying, feminist type of a thing. But here the woman is doing it. If I go, then you won't get the glory. For by the hand of a woman the Lord will deliver up Sisera. And Deborah rose up and went with Barak from out of Kedesh. And so apparently she went up there. And Barak summoned to Zebulun and to Naphtali and to Kedesh there, and 10,000 men ascended by his feet. And Deborah ascended with him. And the near ones of the Kenite were separated from Kenah, some type of a people that were not Jewish, from the sons of Obab, Gamvru, a father-in-law of Moses. Now here's a third spelling, or the third spelling of the name of father-in-law of Moses. He's called Jethro in Exodus 2:16, and then in Judges 1:16, he's called Jothor, and here Ovab. Now, why the differences, I really don't know. Some people might say that, well, the one of them was a title of what he was, because he was a priest in Midian. And he pitched his tent by Oak of the Ones Resting, which is next to Kedesh, which is up there, so someplace in this oak. And it was announced to, that would be that man of the Kenites. And it was announced to Sisera that Barak, son of Avinoam, ascended unto Mount Tabor. And again, that's right there. And Sisera called all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people with him, from Arisoth of the nations unto the rushing stream Kishon. It's people over here. And Deborah said to Barak, "Rise up, for this is the day in which the Lord delivers Sisera into your hand." So, as a prophetess, she knew what God was going to do. Now, a prophet and prophetesses, I believe, are still around today, and they prophesy, and they can see certain things that are happening, and they can make a prophecy. And but I mean, some prophecies are very difficult, because if you said, this is January of 2020, if you said in February the United States was going to be defeated by Mexico, something like that, and it didn't happen, then you'd be a false prophet. But if you said bad things are going to happen to the United States in February, well, bad things will happen everywhere. So your prophecy would not be incorrect. So I suppose you would be considered a prophet. There was a man who prophesied the end of the world years ago, 50 years ago, when I was at mega church in Southern California. It was a big thing in the news. I can't remember his name, but the pastor of the church says, "Well, I prophesy that the world won't come to an end at that time, and we'll find out who the prophet is, who the false prophet and the true prophet is." Of course, the world didn't come to an end, and everybody laughed, because it was kind of a clever thing to say. And then it continues, "Behold, is not the Lord gone in front of you?" To Barak, he's in front. And Barak went down from Mount Thavor, and 10,000 men behind him. A decade, 10 years. So the Lord is in front, which is good to have him, and better than not to be with you. And the Lord startled Sisera and all his chariots and all his camp by the mouth of the broadsword before Barak. And Sisera came down from on top of his chariot and fled by his feet. And Barak pursued after the chariots and after the camp unto Oak of the Nations, which was somewhere up here. And all the camp of Sisera fell by the mouth of the broadsword. There was not left behind even one. So the whole army was destroyed, of the Canaanites. And Sisera withdrew Tis Posinav too by his feet to the tent of Aiel, wife of Haver the Keneu, the Kenite, Heber the Kenite. So he was up there somewhere. For there was peace between Iavin, king of Hazor, and between the house of Haver the Kenite. And Aiel came for a meeting with Sisera. And she said to him, and he's fleeing from the battle, "Turn aside, O my master." Now here you see master for Kyrie. Normally it would be Lord or Kyrios in the Greek for the Lord Jesus Christ, and the use for the tetragrammaton, if it was the tetragrammaton, which is not in Judges 4. And she says, "Turn aside to me. Fear not, phovu." The phobe has to do with fear or phobia. And he turned aside to her into the skinin, a scene, a tent. As I mentioned, the early plays were done in tents. They call them scenes. And she covered him with her hide covering, or by her hide covering, these leather covers. And Sisera said to her, "Give a drink, please, to me, a little water, for I'm thirsty." And she opened the leather bag of milk, and she gave to him drink, and she covered his person. And he said to her, "Well, stand in the door of the tent, and it will be, if a man should come to you and should ask you, and should say to you, 'Is there a man here?' that you shall say, 'There is not.'" And Iael, the wife of Haver, we don't know what happened, where he was, but took the peg of the tent, those long pegs that they drove in the ground that keep the tent from falling over, and put the hammer in her hand and entered to him tranquilly. He's sort of laying there underneath sleeping, and hammered the peg into his ganafu. Here we have his cheek, ganafu, and temple. 16 has temple, and then later in the Complutensian has cheek for where we'll see down here. It gets kind of confusing a little bit, but and behold, and he, being startled, was enveloped in darkness and died. And behold, Barak was pursuing Sisera, and Iael came forth from meeting him and said to him, "Come, I'll show to you the man whom you seek." And he entered with her, and behold, there was Sisera, having fallen necros, dead. Necrology is a study of death. And the peg in his, see now, krotafo, his temple. Now, ganafo, it was cheek earlier, and here's the temple. And the 16 has the opposite on the first one, and the Complutensian the opposite on the second. Well, anyway, he was killed. And God abased in that day Iavin, king of Canaan, in front of the sons of Israel. And the hand of the sons of Israel went forth, going and hardening against Iavin, king of Canaan, until of which time they utterly destroyed him. So the king conquering this area up here with Deborah. The next chapter, a beautiful song of Deborah and Barak. And we will go through that song with its prophecies and how it affects the future. Hope you'll join us in chapter 5. Until then, God bless.